My sister's fingers froze over her phone when a message popped up from a group chat called Family Time, no Lily, and she looked up only when I whispered her name. I shoved open the cafe door just as my brother's laugh died on his lips. The smell of coffee and toasted bread hit me, but all I could see was my family clustered around a table. They froze when they saw me, hands halfway to their mouths, napkins draped over laps. For a second, the only sound was the hiss of the espresso machine. My mother's eyes darted to my father's, then to the door as if calculating an escape. My brother's girlfriend tucked her phone under the table like a child hiding a forbidden toy. The waitress hovered nearby with a pot of coffee, fidgeting when no one signaled her. My chair was empty. The week before, I didn't even know this brunch existed. I used to joke that Sunday dinners were religion in our house. I'm 29, the oldest of 4 siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, and I'd always been the organizer, the one who made sure birthdays had a cake and that my dad's favorite casserole made it to the table still hot. We'd gather at my parents' place, squeeze around the same old oak table, and argue over who would do the dishes. Growing up, those dinners were the anchor that held us together. The laughter was loud, conversation chaotic, but it was ours. I didn't notice the shift at first. One Sunday, I arrived to find plates already scraped clean, the evidence hidden under piles of napkins. My mother smiled too brightly and said they assumed I had to work late. I brushed it off. I'm a nurse. My schedule can be unpredictable. Another time, my sister made a passing comment about a game night. I laughed and asked when they planned it. She blinked and said, "Oh, you must have been busy," then changed the subject. I convinced myself I was misreading things. Families have lives, things come up. Then my brother's girlfriend posted a picture of my family at a restaurant, a nice one reserved for anniversaries or promotions. Everyone was there except me. It was a candid shot, my father mid-laugh, my youngest sister leaning across the table, her braids swinging. The caption was something like, "Love these goofballs." The timestamp was 3 hours earlier. I stared at the image until my screen dimmed. The next day I casually mentioned it to my mother. "Looks like you guys had fun last night," I said, my voice light. She reached for a dishcloth, cheeks coloring. "Oh, that," she replied, forcing a laugh. "It was last minute. We thought you had a night shift." I nodded, ignoring the tightness in my chest. When the odd invitations piled up, brunches, beach trips, game nights, always discovered after the fact through Instagram stories or the family group chat, I stopped brushing it off. In the group chat, there were jokes I didn't understand and references to shared memories I hadn't lived. It felt like there was a version of my family that existed without me. I started watching their social media like I was studying strangers. I scrolled through stories and posts, paying attention to who was tagged where and when. One Tuesday night, my youngest sister posted a story of her and my brother at a cafe. The image lasted a few seconds, but something caught my eye in the corner, the name of a group chat displayed at the top of the screenshot, Family Time, no Lily. My heart stuttered. I took a quick screenshot before the story disappeared. I sat on my couch staring at those words. My family had a group chat that explicitly excluded me. The realization made my skin prickle. It wasn't just a few missed invitations. They were coordinating without me, discussing me behind my back. Over the next days, I couldn't concentrate. I replayed conversations, looked for clues. I borrowed my best friend's phone to create a fake account, followed my siblings and their partners, and watched from the shadows. The anxiety was constant, a low hum under everything I did. I thought about confronting them. Each time the words formed on my tongue, I swallowed them back. What if I was wrong? What if I was making a big deal out of nothing? But the screenshot glared back at me. An article I'd once read about group chat etiquette floated through my mind. It said that because group chats involve many people, anything shared there is hard to keep private. It was a warning about oversharing, but now it felt like evidence of how naive I had been. I had trusted our group chat as a place of inclusion, not realizing another threat existed, one labeled by my absence. On Sunday afternoon, my mother texted, "Dinner is off tonight. We'll reschedule." No reason. Just a cancellation. I spent the evening at home, scrolling through Netflix, trying not to feel disappointed. Later, lying in bed, I opened Instagram out of habit. The first story was a photo of my family around the table I'd polished 100 times. My father carved a roast. My mother ladled gravy. My siblings laughed. The caption had a plate emoji and a heart. They hadn't rescheduled. They had dinner without me. My hands shook. I wanted to call them to demand an explanation. Instead, I lay in the dark watching the little circles at the top of my phone fill with faces I recognized but suddenly felt estranged from. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I went to work with heavy eyes and the weight of my family's silence pressing on my shoulders. During my lunch break, I logged onto Reddit and typed out a post in a late-night forum. My family has been excluding me. Am I crazy? Responses flooded in. Strangers validated my feelings, shared stories of similar betrayals, urged me to confront them. I felt less alone, but no less unsettled. Days later, I received a direct message from an anonymous account. "I know why they're avoiding you, but you're not ready to hear it." Before I could reply, the account vanished. The message lingered like a bad dream. I read and reread it, wondering who had sent it and what they thought they knew. My stomach churned with dread. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I was holding onto a version of my family that might no longer exist. I decided to confront them at the next Sunday brunch. My mother had mentioned a casual get-together at a nearby cafe, and I planned to arrive early. That brings me back to the moment I shoved open the cafe door. My family stared at me like I was a stranger. I sat down and ordered coffee with hands that trembled. "Nice of you to join us," my brother said, trying for a joke. The words landed flat. I smiled without humor. We chatted about mundane things, work, my youngest sister's new apartment, my brother's fantasy football league, until the food came. The weight of what I needed to say made the air heavy. I took a sip of my coffee and put the cup down carefully. "I saw the picture from Sunday," I said, voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. Their faces shuddered. My mother's fork hovered midair. My father cleared his throat. My brother opened his mouth and closed it again. My sister dropped her gaze to her plate. "We thought you were working," my mother said quickly. "I wasn't," I replied. A silence settled. The cafe's background chatter seemed to swell. I listed the events I'd missed, the brunch, the beach trip, the game night I only knew about because of a stray comment. I watched as each memory landed like a pebble thrown into water, causing ripples across their expressions. My brother glanced at my mother, his jaw tense. "There's a reason," he blurted. My father shot him a look, and he fell silent. The table went quiet. My heart hammered. I demanded to know if I'd done something wrong. Was there a fight I'd forgotten? A slight I hadn't apologized for? No one answered. It was like talking to a wall. Anger sparked. I shoved my chair back. The scrape loud in the small cafe. Heads turned. I threw some cash on the table and walked out, my mother calling after me. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry in front of them. Outside, the cold air hit my face and I sucked in a breath, the inhale shaky. I got into my car and drove aimlessly, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. That night, my youngest sister texted me. "It's not what you think. Give us time." I didn't respond. What could I say? Everything I thought I knew about my family was slipping. The next morning, my father called. His voice was softer than usual, his tone almost hesitant. "I'm sorry about yesterday," he said. "It's complicated." He wouldn't elaborate. I hung up feeling more confused. When even my aunt, who I'd always considered a safe harbor, acted strangely when I reached out, offering cryptic assurances rather than answers, I felt like the walls were closing in. I couldn't wait. I created a fake Instagram profile, followed my siblings and their partners, and scrolled. One afternoon, my youngest sister posted a story of a text exchange with my brother, a screenshot she clearly meant to crop. In the corner, the title of the group chat glowed, "Family Time, No Lily." It was there in black and white. I called her on impulse and asked to meet. We sat across from each other at a coffee shop. She looked nervous, twisting the ring on her finger. I showed her the screenshot. Her face went pale. "We didn't mean for you to see that," she whispered. "Then why does it exist?" I asked. She hesitated, then confessed the chat was created 6 months ago. My heart pounded. Around 6 months ago, my relationship with Daniel had imploded. Daniel had been my boyfriend for nearly 2 years. He'd woven himself into the fabric of our family. He'd attended birthdays, played catch with my brother, laughed with my father over beers. Then, seemingly overnight, he became distant. We drifted apart and eventually broke up. I hadn't linked that timeline to my family's behavior until now. "It's because of Daniel," my sister whispered. The words hung between us. She wouldn't say more. She looked scared, genuinely scared, and it made my stomach drop. She begged me not to tell our parents she'd slipped up. I left the cafe with more questions than answers. I sat in my car and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face looked tired, eyes shadowed. The freeway hummed behind me. I dialed Daniel. When he answered, his voice was wary. "Do you know anything about why my family's acting weird?" I asked. There was a long pause. "I don't want to get involved," he said finally. "Involved in what? What did you do?" He sighed. "This isn't my story to tell." "Actually, it is," I said. He hesitated. "Fine," he said quietly. "Your family confronted me last year. Someone saw me with someone else. I messed up. Your mom asked me to break up with you quietly so you wouldn't get hurt." I agreed. Silence settled over the call. My breath came shallow. So Daniel had cheated. My family knew. They had orchestrated a clean breakup to spare me. They had kept it a secret, created a group chat to coordinate the deception, excluded me from events to avoid slipping up. Why didn't anyone tell me? I whispered, more to myself than to him. He said something about not wanting to hurt me. I hung up. At home, I scrolled through the responses to my latest Reddit update. Some comments were sympathetic, others enraged. One message referenced research I'd encountered before. Secrets in families create a power dynamic where the secret keepers hold all the power. The article had described how carrying significant secrets erodes relationships and breeds mistrust. Reading those lines months ago, I nodded along abstractly. Now the words felt visceral. My family had decided I couldn't handle the truth. They had decided for me. I drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't knock. My father sat in his recliner watching a game. My mother was chopping vegetables. They looked up startled. "We need to talk," I said. My mother's knife paused midair. "I know about the group chat," I continued. She exchanged a glance with my father. My brother walked in from the garage. "Tell me why," I demanded. My mother's eyes filled with tears. She began to explain in halting sentences. "Last year, a family friend saw Daniel kissing another woman. They took a photo and sent it to my mother. She showed my father. They decided to confront Daniel. He admitted he cheated and said he planned to end things anyway. My parents, thinking they were protecting me, made a bargain. Break up with me quickly and quietly, and they wouldn't tell me why. They created the separate group chat to coordinate. They planned dinners and events without me when Daniel might come up. They coached my siblings not to mention him. They believed they were sparing me the pain of knowing. My head spun. I could hear my own breathing. My mother was crying now, her shoulders shaking. She kept saying she was sorry. My father stared at the floor. My brother confessed he thought it was the right thing at the time but realized he'd been wrong when he saw how hurt I was. I felt detached, like I was watching it on a screen. My hands were cold. You decided for me, I said quietly. You didn't think I could handle the truth. We thought we were protecting you, my mother sobbed. You took away my choice, I replied. The weight of it settled on us. I left without hugging anyone. I went home and sat on the couch, staring at a wall. When my phone buzzed with messages from my siblings, I muted the group chat. I needed to breathe. I read another passage from the article on secret keeping. That keeping secrets creates a false narrative and makes those kept in the dark feel they were living a false life. It could cause stress and even physical symptoms. I could feel that truth in the tightness of my chest, the knot in my stomach. Over the next month, I went no contact. I changed my routines. I threw myself into work, extra shifts at the hospital, long runs at dawn when the streets were empty. On weekends I met friends for hikes or movies, anything to fill the void. But there were nights when I lay awake, the hum of my refrigerator the only sound, and thought about the look on my mother's face when she told me. I replayed scenes from the past year, moments that now carried a different weight. I started therapy. In our first session, I sat across from a therapist with soft eyes and told her everything. She listened without interrupting. She suggested we explore why the secret hurt so deeply. She noted that families often keep secrets out of fear that the person couldn't handle the truth, fear of conflict, fear of being judged. But she also noted that secrets create a power imbalance, undermining trust and intimacy. The article I'd read echoed this. Keeping significant secrets sets up a dynamic where one group has control. Therapy became a place where I could untangle my anger from my sadness without having to censor myself. 2 weeks into my self-imposed exile, Daniel emailed me. He wrote that he regretted everything. The cheating, the lying, the way he let my family dictate our breakup. He said he was sorry. He wrote that he understood if I never wanted to speak to him again. I read the email twice and then shared it with my therapist. She suggested I consider what closure looked like for me. Was responding necessary? Did silence serve me better? In the end, I replied with a single paragraph thanking him for the apology and saying I didn't want further contact. Hitting send felt like placing a stone over a grave. When my aunt finally called, she added context I hadn't considered. She told me that when my mother was in her 20s, she'd been cheated on in a way that shattered her. She'd never fully recovered from the betrayal. My aunt believed my mother projected her own trauma onto me, desperate to shield me from the same pain. It didn't excuse her actions, but it made them more human. My siblings reached out one by one. My brothers suggested family therapy. He admitted they had already started sessions, trying to unpack their own guilt. My best friend confessed she'd sensed something was off last year but hadn't known how to raise it without proof. She offered to accompany me to therapy if I needed support. Eventually, I agreed to meet my father alone in a park. We sat on a bench by a duck pond, watching the water ripple. He didn't try to defend their choices. He apologized and admitted he had gone along with my mother's plan because he hadn't wanted to upset her. He said he felt he had failed me by not insisting on the truth. Hearing him admit his mistake cracked something in the barrier I'd built. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. The idea of family therapy scared me, but I agreed to try under one condition. I controlled the narrative. No more secrets. No more lies. If I felt ambushed, I would leave. They agreed. The first session was awkward. We sat in a circle, eyes on the therapist rather than each other. She set ground rules about listening and not interrupting. She invited me to speak first. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. I told them how it felt to be excluded, to learn that they'd created a separate chat, to find out my boyfriend cheated and that they all knew. I spoke about the nights I spent wondering what I'd done wrong, about the anxiety that chewed at me. I didn't sugarcoat or soften my story. My mother cried throughout. She apologized, explaining that seeing Daniel with someone else had triggered memories of her own betrayal. She had convinced herself that sparing me the knowledge would save me from pain. My siblings admitted they had followed her lead, fearing to upset her. My brother said he regretted not telling me, especially when he saw how isolated I became. During the session, the therapist talked about how infidelity ruptures trust and emotional bonds within a family, but that family therapy can provide a structured space to rebuild that trust. She mentioned evidence-based approaches like the Gottman Trust Revival Method, which focuses on transparency and empathy. It was odd hearing clinical terms applied to my messy life, but it also made me feel less alone, like there was a roadmap. She said that effective communication, active listening, honest emotional expression, is vital for healing. At the therapist's prompting, my brother took out his phone and deleted the secret group chat in front of all of us. My sisters followed suit. It was symbolic, but watching the chat disappear felt like a small act of accountability. They promised not to create any chats that excluded me again. They promised to talk to me, not about me. After the session, I responded to Daniel's email once more. I reiterated that while I appreciated his apology, I didn't want any further contact. He replied with a brief acknowledgement. That door closed. In the weeks that followed, there were small changes. My mother started asking me directly about my schedule rather than assuming. My siblings invited me to casual dinners and group hikes. It was awkward at first, but slowly we started laughing together again. We began a monthly family dinner where we talked about what was going on in our lives. At one of those dinners, I suggested we each share something we were struggling with. My brother spoke about his guilt. My mother shared her anxiety and how she still struggled with trust. We were all a bit raw, but it felt like we were finally seeing each other. There were still moments when anger flared unexpectedly. A song would play that reminded me of Daniel, or my mother would mention something innocuous and I would feel the old hurt. Therapy helped me learn to acknowledge those feelings without letting them consume me. I learned, too, that boundaries didn't mean shutting people out. They meant creating spaces where honesty could survive. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the family friend who had taken the photo of Daniel. She apologized for not telling me herself. She wrote that she had tried to, but my mother had intercepted her and insisted on keeping it quiet. Reading her words made me realize how far-reaching the deception had been, how many people had been enlisted in the name of protecting me. It also underscored how secrecy can ripple through a community, affecting even those on the periphery. I met my mother alone after that. We sat on her porch, the late afternoon sun slanting across the yard. We both cried. She told me about being cheated on when she was 22 by someone she thought she would marry. She told me how the betrayal had hollowed her out, how she'd carried the weight for years. When she saw Daniel with someone else, she said, her mind went back to that dark place. She panicked. She said she knew it was wrong to lie, but she couldn't bear the thought of me feeling what she'd felt. I listened. For the first time, I saw my mother as not just the keeper of secrets, but as someone wounded, driven by fear. It didn't erase the hurt, but it softened the edges. We hugged, and for a moment, the gap between us felt smaller. Since then, rebuilding trust has been slow. Some days I feel hopeful, other days cautious. But we're doing it together. I still have nights when I replay the moment I saw the words family time, no Lily, and feel a pinch in my chest. I don't know if I'll ever fully get over the betrayal, but I have learned that secrecy, however well-intentioned, can fracture relationships. I remember lines from the Psychology Today article. Keeping secrets destroys relationships and creates an atmosphere of mistrust. It creates a false narrative, leaving those in the dark confused about what was real. Those words ring true. Now, when we gather around the table, be it at Sunday dinners or our new monthly check-ins, I sometimes find myself studying everyone's faces as if to memorize this version of us, the version where the air is thick with accountability rather than unspoken truths. My youngest sister will tease me about my obsession with board games. My brother will argue with my father over football. My mother will pass me the mashed potatoes, and sometimes, her hand will linger on mine. At the end of each evening, when I drive home, the headlights cutting through the darkness, I think about how fragile trust is and how easily it can be broken. I think about how we're choosing again and again to repair what we shattered. As I unlock my door and step into my quiet apartment, the echo of our laughter still in my ears, I know that healing isn't linear. It's messy and uneven, but it's happening. And for now, that feels like enough.